Hey, how's it going, do-it-yourselfers? Today I'm going to go over the top 5 symptoms of having low or even in some cases dirty transmission fluid in your car. Now, these symptoms are going to be very similar or pretty much the same in some cases as to when you have internal transmission problems. And it's very important to know these symptoms so you can, obviously check your transmission fluid level and, check the transmission fluid condition before you take your car to the transmission shop, because a lot of times in the transmission shops, they are, they follow certain procedures, diagnostic procedures. They don't really do all they need to do before they start throwing big ticket items at your car, because let's face it, it's in their interest to do the bigger repairs rather than just replace your transmission fluid and go from there. So yeah, pay attention to this video because it can potentially save you a lot of money. Now you might be thinking there is no need for this video. If I ever have transmission problems, first thing I'm going to do is to get the transmission oil dipstick out and check my transmission fluid level. Now that's great if your car does have a dipstick to check your transmission fluid level, but a lot of cars these days have a sealed transmission, quote unquote. Also, these symptoms we're going to go over are going to be the same if you have dirty transmission fluid as well. Now before we get to the first symptom, just a quick update for my subscribers as to why I've been gone for another 3-4 weeks again. I managed to get COVID about 2-3 weeks ago. That's why you might notice I sound a little bit more hoarse than usual, but it was a quick recovery. I had my booster about 2 months ago, so not a problem there. But no, I wasn't planning on pulling another disappearing act on you guys. All right, so symptom number 1, which is a very important one and the one that a lot of people get wrong and costs them a lot of money, especially do-it-yourselfers, which is, you get a check engine light, you get your scanner, and it's a fault code. It's a transmission fluid sensor or switch pressure fault code. Now, a lot of people, when they get those fault codes automatically go to the switch or the sensor. All the while, there's a problem with, you either have low transmission fluid or, your old transmission fluid that's kind of dirty and clogging up things, setting off those fault codes. So if you don't get this right, instead of, topping off your transmission fluid or chasing a transmission fluid leak and fixing that, you go down a different path that ends up costing you a lot of money. Now, just to give you a real life example on this, my brother's 2015 RX 350 had a fault code, which was, I think, if I remember correctly, was about same thing, a transmission pressure sensor. And basically the description said something along the lines of, if this fault code is set, if the pressure doesn't get to a certain amount at a certain vehicle speed or engine RPM. Now, if this fault code is set, you were to check the resistance of the sensor, and then you would check the wiring from that sensor to the transmission control module. If everything checked out and you still everything checked out, you were to replace the transmission control module, which would at the dealer would cost about $800–900. Now, what we noticed was that he was not low on transmission fluid necessarily, but he'd never changed the transmission fluid, and it was a sealed transmission, and the car had 120,000 miles on it. So we replaced the transmission fluid on his car, and he hasn't had that light come back or that fault code come back yet. So this is just one example of how this could cost you a lot of money if you don't check your transmission fluid level or the quality or the condition of your transmission fluid. All right, so symptom number 2, which is hard or delayed shifting. So you're driving your car down the road, the transmission goes to shift from one gear to the other, it jolts, or it's a really hard shift and you feel it. Now, unfortunately, this is one of those symptoms that if you don't have, low transmission fluid or very dirty transmission fluid, the odds are that you have internal transmission problems of some sort. It might be mechanical or it might be electrical with one of the sensors and whatnot if you're lucky. But again, the first line of defense should be check your fluid levels, check your the transmission fluid condition. And if you find out that this is indeed a mechanical problem and if you have very dirty transmission fluid, just be warned when you go to replace that transmission fluid and you put new transmission fluid in there, things could actually get worse, unfortunately. So, if you have one of these cases and your car is still functional somewhat, it's your decision to make, but you might want to just keep that dirty transmission fluid and keep on driving it. All right, so symptom number 3, which is a burning smell coming from under the hood. Now, obviously, a burning smell coming from under the hood can be many things, including but not limited to, oil leaks, coolant leaks, and transmission fluid leaks. But If you've experienced this before, this is going to be a very distinct smell. It's not going to smell the same as the oil or coolant that's burning, hitting your exhaust pipes and whatnot and burning, and you being able to smell it. And this is due to you possibly being low on transmission fluid, because the transmission fluid is there not only to, provide hydraulic pressure for your transmission to function, but also to cool the transmission components. It runs through your transmission to your transmission cooler, gets cooled down, goes back into the transmission, and then provides, it cools down the transmission. So now, unfortunately, this is very important to notice early on, because if you don't catch this early, then you're going to have some serious problems with the internal components of your transmission, the clutches and whatnot. They're going to get burnt, and you're going to have to rebuild or replace that transmission. All right, so symptom number 4, which is if you have a slipping transmission. And that's basically, if your transmission has a hard time staying in gear, slips out of gear when in gear, or, slips up or down abruptly or when it's not supposed to. If you have low transmission fluid, this is obviously due to having low hydraulic pressure inside your transmission. So again, make sure you check your transmission fluid level. This is one of those things that's less likely to do with having dirty or older transmission fluid inside your transmission, because generally speaking, the dirty or old transmission fluid don't cause your transmission slipping out of gear. They provide there's a lot of friction, perhaps maybe too much friction inside your transmission if you have old or dirty transmission fluid. But if you have low transmission fluid, then if there's not enough hydraulic pressure, then that's when you experience somewhat slipping transmission, at least in my experience. All right, symptom number 5, which is noise or a whining noise coming from your transmission. Now, if you ever had a bad power steering pump, or if you had a power steering leak and you were low on power steering fluid, this is a very similar noise, but it's coming from your transmission, obviously. But if the way you can differentiate between the two is, if you have this noise, you get in your car, with the car in park, you turn the steering wheel back and forth. If the noise goes up and down, then it's likely to be from your, from your pump due to low power steering fluid, or maybe a pump that's going bad. But if the noise stays the same, it could be coming from your transmission fluid pump. Now, however, this is one of those symptoms that it could be due to low transmission fluid, or maybe even a dirty transmission fluid, but also it could indicate internal transmission damage. What happens is a lot of times the clutch packs and other components wear out, and they start clogging up the screen where the transmission fluid pump sucks in the fluid, and then there's air bubbles and whatnot, and it makes that noise. Now, this could also, other internal parts of your transmission can make this noise, but none of them are good news as far as you're concerned, unfortunately. But again, obviously, make sure you check your transmission fluid level. And I don't think I mentioned this, if you have a sealed transmission, no transmission is completely sealed. There has to be a way to fill it. That's how they filled it with transmission fluid in the factory. Generally speaking, you have a fill hole on the side of the transmission and a drain plug at the bottom. You obviously want to make sure you take off the fill hole on the side of the transmission if you are to add transmission fluid or replace your transmission fluid before you remove the one for draining it, because a lot of times if you can't remove the fill hole and you drain your transmission fluid, then your car is stuck wherever it is, and then you need to find a way to get it to a shop so they can fix it. But basically the way it usually works is that you remove every car is different, but a lot of times you remove the fill hole or the drain hole, and then once the transmission is at a certain temperature, if transmission fluid starts dribbling out, then that means there's enough transmission fluid in there. You can obviously look into your owner's manual for the correct procedure, but it's not rocket science. It's pretty straightforward. So, make sure you check your transmission fluid level and condition if you have any of these symptoms that we just talked about. All right, now if you guys have any common car questions or questions about anything really, and you want me to make a video response to your question, please leave it down below in the comments section. And if this video helped you out, make sure you subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and hit that bell notification. And if you want to help me out even further, check out some of my other videos in the suggestion box, or click and watch some of them on the screen as well. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.